Amazing job. We have some basic return in sort. So now, of course, let's make it a bit more interesting and add the functionality to change the list. I think that's going to be easier. And then we'll tackle this one, the select input. And we'll start in a filter context. We already have the state value, which is grid view. And by default, it is true. So now, of course, what I would want is to set up two functions that dispatch two actions. One is going to be set grid view. So this is just going to set it equal to true. And then one is going to be set list view, which of course will set it equal to false. And then if that is the case, we already know that we will display the list, correct? So right after the use effect, we're going to go with two functions, const, and I'll call this set grid view. And that one is equal to my function. So I don't need to pass any parameters. I'm just going to go with dispatch over here. And of course, I would need to pass in type. And there is already a action variable for that. So we'll say set grid view. And we'll just copy and paste that like so. And now, of course, I would want to set up the set list view. That's going to be another function. And instead of set grid view, of course, I'll pass in set and then list view. So once I have both of these functions, I would want to pass them down since I would want to use them. So say set grid view, set list view, and now it's up to you. If you want to set up the reducer first, you can do it. Or in my case, I'm just going to go and attach both of these functions to my buttons, and then I'll deal with them in the reducer. So let's save. And again, we're looking for sort component. So we're done with the list view. We're actually done with the product list as well. And in the sort.js, I would want to first grab both of these functions. And remember, name was set grid view. And the second one was set list and then view. And the first one is going to be the grid button. That's why in here we'll say on click. So once we click, we get set grid view. And then the second one will, of course, will be my list. So again, we go with on click and we'll go with set list view function. So once I click on each of the buttons, of course, I'm invoking different function. So I'll save, and we just need to handle that in the reducer, and the setup is pretty straightforward, where once we navigate there in the filter context, I have two actions, set list view and set grid view. And I have one state variable. So you can already guess that we'll just toggle that value. So I'm going to go with action type is equal to a set grid view. So set grid view underscore grid view. Then, of course, I would want to return my state. So let's go with return dot state. But then the property, the grid underscore view property, will be equal to true. Now, if of course the action is set list view, you can already guess that grid view will be set to false. Let's copy and paste. We have set list view. This is going to be another action. And then, of course, it's going to be set to false. So now we should be able to navigate to the big screen. And then once we click on the buttons, of course, there it is. Now I have the list view. And now I have a grid view. Why? Well, because we're changing the value in the state, and in the product list, we're handling that. Again, I'm going to go back to the components just so you don't think that I'm cheating. I have filter provider. And of course, in the reducer, notice grid view is true. Once you click, this is false. Since this is false in a product list, we are returning a list view. And since we attach this class of active to the buttons, now, of course, if the value matches to the one we're looking for, of course, now the button is active. So now this is the grid view and this is the list view.